Welcome to NVC Life. I'm Rachelle Lamb, veteran NVC trainer and relationship coach, helping listeners navigate interpersonal conflict and ground more deeply into relational living. Greetings, fellow humans. Today is episode 1 of year 2 of my podcast. And the subject I'd like to explore is in response to a question that I get asked at every workshop I ever give. How do I know whether or not I should stay in this relationship? I'm sure it's a familiar question to most listeners. You've probably wondered at some point in your life, do I stay in this relationship or do I go? And it's such a difficult question to have a yes or no answer to. Now, I would say there are times when a person can know with almost 100% certainty that they should exit the relationship. If you are physically under threat, if there's a sense of ongoing oppression, if there's addiction or mental illness or abuse in the relationship, then it's probably a wise idea for you to go. And if there are children involved, it's complicated, but again, we are responsible for our own protection, to take care of ourselves when our partner doesn't, as well as to take care of our children. But I'm imagining that when this question is asked, people are usually referring to different scenarios. More like, it's not so terrible that I can't stay, and it's not that great either. It's more, I just don't know if I can continue in this static way. We've been stuck in our relationship for a long time. Now, Marshall would get asked this question quite a bit at his nonviolent communication workshops. He would often respond by simply saying, when it's no longer play or when your needs are no longer being met. Now, while I think people appreciated the response, I also think that many people didn't find it that satisfying. They were hoping to hear something that would give them an aha moment. Okay, now you've just said something that I can recognize as giving me some clear indicator of which direction I should move in. But it's still a good place to start. You can think about your needs. What are the needs that are not being met as you're staying in the relationship? And to what degree might those needs fall under your responsibility and yet you're projecting them onto the other person? Let's say, for instance, the need for connection and closeness. Now, we might say that our partner isn't delivering on that level. We're not getting our need for connection and closeness met to the degree that we would like. But it's also a possibility that we are not delivering the closeness and the connection. It can also be that we are not connected to ourselves. We're not close to ourselves. And we're not willing to take the risk to get to know ourselves more deeply, to get to know our partner more deeply. And there's the fear that we have around exposing ourselves, of being vulnerable. You know, we have our scripts, we have our roles that we adopt, and we get used to them. And it could very well be that the stretching that would be involved in making yourself vulnerable is it just feels like it's too hard. You just don't want to do it. You would prefer it if your partner was vulnerable first. Then you'll feel safe, and then you will be able to have the connection and closeness that you're longing for. So I have noticed that in my work with couples, for instance, that there can be a moment in our time together when one partner looks at the other and says something like, I really appreciate hearing what you just said there. It meant a lot to me. And the other person quickly moves out of that place of tenderness and vulnerability, going up into their head, maybe saying something like, well, I'm not really sure that I can trust what you're saying right now. When it's obvious that, in fact, the person is quite exposed as they say what they're saying. And what it does, it's a defensiveness It's a coping mechanism. It's another way of saying, you telling me that you appreciate hearing what I've just said brings me to a zone inside of myself that I'm really struggling with. This is the place where I'm saying I really want connection and closeness, and now here it is, and now I don't know what to do with it because I'm more used to maintaining my narrative. That's a familiar place for me. I prefer that. Or complaining about the fact that I don't get it. That's my script. That's my narrative, and I'm sticking to it. So in a moment like that, you can see how if that is what goes on inside of your relationship, you actually won't know whether or not you want to stay in the relationship or leave the relationship because you're actually blocking the forward movement in the relationship. So maybe another way to look at it is, have you taken risks? Is that something you're willing to do? Are you able to own your own wanting, own your own desire for something that's not transpiring in the relationship instead of being pissed off that it's not showing up because your partner's not doing it? If you long for something, you have a choice of either speaking about it or taking an action that puts you in that place of exposing yourself. It could be that, let's just imagine it's the end of the week, you've both worked really hard, you're both really tired, and it's quite amazing what touch will do. You approaching your partner and saying, you know what, I'm so glad that you and I have the weekend together now. I've been missing you all week and really looking forward to our time together. So it's lovely. It's lovely to see you and look into their eyes. Now, I'm suggesting something that's outside of your normal range because switching it up is how you bring more life into the relationship. You bring more life into yourself. And that vibrancy, that aliveness is picked up by the other person as well. And you find yourself having taken initiative to make something happen so that that need for closeness and connection is met. Simply by you saying this, you're able to meet that need within yourself and also meet it for the other person as well, even if they might not have been looking for it in that moment. But it can mean an awful lot to a person just to hear their partner say, "This is great to spend time with you. We so rarely get this opportunity." Even if you've been living together for 10, 20, 30 years, just to say that because we don't know when things will come to an end. So I know there are other factors in a relationship, but when people have that kind of connection, when they know that they're appreciated in the relationship and they genuinely appreciate their partner and they feel grateful most of the time. There's the work of the Gottman Institute, and one of the things that the Gottman Institute claims is that for every negative exchange, a couple needs to have 5 positive ones. And so if you don't have that kind of ratio in your relationship, find a way to make that happen yourself. We do often project our discontent onto our partner. My partner isn't enough of this, isn't enough of that. And yet we're refusing to do that ourselves, refusing to reflect on all the ways in which we are not willing to attend to the needs of the relationship, and also to recognize all the ways in which we miss opportunities to fulfill our own needs by how we initiate or take risks with our partner. So this isn't exactly a clear response to the question, how do you know when you should stay or when you should go? But I'm hoping that in the things I am saying right now, it gives you something to work with. The first place to turn is towards yourself. Check out what you are projecting onto the other person that in fact you could be doing. See if that's somewhere in you. I'm thinking of the poem by David Whyte, Sweet Darkness, where he writes, "When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing: the world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes sweet darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn. Anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. And I like how this parallels my own understanding of nonviolent communication about sharing what's alive in us. And David White, when he talks about this particular poem, says, this is a double-edged sword, this one, because you have to remember that it's not only another person who is not bringing you alive, but there's ways that we go dead to ourselves. And that's our responsibility. So in what ways are you making the relationship small by simply not acknowledging your own fullness, your own vibrancy, your own aliveness? When you bring that into the room and you bring that into your way of breathing, your way of speaking, your way of moving, it's so easy to go dead, to go numb in the lives that we live, because they can be so confining, especially if you find yourself trapped in situations that feel like you're on a hamster wheel. You don't really feel the joy and satisfaction. So it really is up to us to be in charge of our own aliveness, to be in touch with our own aliveness, to not let ourselves go to sleep. So before you decide that the relationship you have with your partner is too small because of them, wonder if it's not because something you're doing. Find ways to bring yourself to life, and you'll be surprised at how much aliveness that can bring to your relationships. Thank you for tuning into NVC Life. For future episodes, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. For free resources or to book a private session with me, head over to RachelleLamb.com. Until the next time, stay sane, grateful, and generous.